Hey, Troy.
Hey, Brad.
Life and Grace.
Life and Grace podcast. We are back at it again. It's been a day or two since we've done any of these.
Well, we had a holiday, Memorial Day, and we had
We did.
some other things going on. Sometimes getting together for an hour is challenging, isn't it?
It is when you got family and you got stuff to do and all those chores. And I had to mow. I told you before I could come over.
He
I mowed.
He sweated.
I was sweating.
Yeah.
I lost a lot of H2O out of my system.
Well,
So Brad got me
it's a
some
good
more.
way to spend a Sunday
Yeah, it was.
afternoon. Rewarding. Probably felt good at the end looking back on it.
It looked good. I wasn't feeling good doing it. It was hot or muggy. I guess more humid than anything. It's not hot yet, but
Well, we thought, just getting in here today and just carrying on some conversation just about the times we've had over the last couple of weeks with family and friends and some of the things we've probably cooked and eaten and community and just kind of fill everyone in on what we kind of do in those moments, I guess, with our families and friends. And it was a good time.
yeah, we had a really good time. Memorial weekend, we went down to our middle daughter's house. Her and her husband lived down in Oklahoma, so we went down there and we spent Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Yeah, we came back Monday, had a good time, walked around through the Wichita Mountains.
Mountains in Oklahoma.
There are mountains, maybe not to those of you in Colorado or some of those other mountainous states. You don't think Oklahoma and Kansas having any mountains, but we have something what we call mountains.
Did you keep up okay?
I kept up fine. Went our little trail walk. At least it wasn't too bad. Saw a lot of buffalo. They got in this reserve area. They just got buffalo just walking around.
Behind a fence, or
No, not even. There's some areas that are fenced that they don't let us in. It's not really to keep them from wherever. But they had a lot of fences, and they were actually open where the buffalo just walked from one field down the side of the road to the other opening in the fence. I mean, we're talking, they probably walked about 100 yards. They knew where they were going. They could have walked across the street right in front of the cars, but they walk right down the side of the road and they go right into the other opening to the other grazing lands. It was pretty cool.
Did you see recently in the news where a girl tried to pet a bison, a wild bison in Yellowstone?
Yeah.
It kind of went after, or maybe it was a guy. I don't know, but either
Somebody.
way, it happened. Don't assume those big animals are friendly.
They're not cows. And I wouldn't even pet some cows that are in the field because some people may not realize that by looking at a cow and a bull, immediate difference. By looking at them at the face, they come across the bull instead of a so-called docile cow, they might be in trouble.
Have you ever been cow tipping?
It's statute of limitations of yes. They're gone long
time ago.
Yeah.
Catch them sleeping in a field and you run up and push them over.
Yeah, we had cows, so I didn't have to run very far. We had cows and steers, so yeah, they'd sleep every once. We didn't push over the milk cows. We would have got in trouble probably.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, at least you were humane about it.
Yeah, we just pick on the steers. They've already been, hurt anyway. So
Well, it doesn't hurt them, does it?
no, but when they become steers, it does. I think a little bit.
To tip them over while they're sleeping?
No, to make them steers.
Oh.
I think that might be painful.
Yeah, you're right. I just wondered. I was under the impression somehow because they were steers, tipping them over bothered them more.
Oh, well, I don't know. It was just funny.
Well, we Memorial Day weekend, we spent the whole day at a friend's, and we had a smoker going and grill going, and we put the grill and the smoker up on the flatbed and took it over there like the Beverly Hillbillies.
Very nice.
And we made shrimp kebabs and shish kebabs, and they had dove kebabs and all kinds of stuff. So it was really good. And then we took actually that was Saturday. We took Sunday off, and then Monday we had Stephanie, my wife's family, over here and made a breakfast, and still had all the grills on the back of the trailer. So we did it 2 times in one weekend, and it was a good time. But gosh, I was exhausted at the end of it. It was. To have fun is not very relaxing sometimes.
It wears you out to have fun sometimes. Yeah, I can't say, I wished I would have been here, but I'm glad we went and visited, the kids and got to watch, go see buffalo instead of hanging out at the lake with you guys. But it looked like you guys had fun from the pictures that were posted.
It was a blast. And then, of course, getting reacquainted to normalcy is challenging too after a weekend like that. I was exhausted on Tuesday after it was all over, and back at it doing pitching lessons and trying to get stuff done around here. So we're back in the real world.
I had to go. Yeah, exactly. I had to go back to work to rest up.
Yeah.
go do that 9 to 5 or 6:30 to 4:30, whatever the actual hours are, right? Get back to that normalcy. But the week before that, I got to, as you know, our church has been doing the summer. We've taken off from our groups that we have. At our church, we do small groups, and I've talked about small groups. Brad got me into my first small group, like I said, 10 years ago. But during the summer, we take those weekly small group times off, and because we kind of go with the school, right? We go with the school time frame. So I signed up with the push and the nudge from our pastor to do the backyard barbecues. So where once a month guys come over to my house and we grill, or in this case I grilled and they brought food over. But man, it was some good food, some good time. Everybody sat around and talked and
nice. Well,
had some good ribs.
I know that the grill that you got is, I think there's a lot of technique involved with it. So it sounds like you've gotten to a place where you're doing pretty good. So I can't wait to come over and eat.
Yeah, I'm ready to make some more food. I told them though, I'm not taking the whole day off for this month, so I'm not going to spend, because it takes a solid, as you know, you grill, smoke. It took a solid 6 hours just to do the ribs from start of the smoker to taking it off the smoker. That doesn't count the prep work, right. But just 6 hours of cooking time just for the ribs that I did. You don't have to do them exactly like I did it, but I did those that way. So, I mean, it was a solid 7.5 hours of prepping, cooking, serving food. I was tired.
Successful.
Nevertheless. Everybody got full. So we had a good time.
Yeah, as was ours. Everybody ate good, but as we're going through these types of conversations and I just want to make light of the fact that not everybody maybe has the opportunities sometimes that we may get, and vice versa. There's people that get a lot, I guess, more glorified opportunities than we get, but nevertheless, it's Memorial Day. There was a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
As far as people that came before us and have passed on, and just to recognize those people. And I know, in my own life, the elder people that I had around me were, some of the wisest people I feel like that I could have been blessed being around, and taking full advantage of that. I really like sitting around with the generation that came before me and just talking about their lives and what they experienced, because it's so different. I mean, you think of just the generation gap, and then you start looking at our kids, and the interest you hope carries on, but it's just it's a shame that a lot more people don't see the quality in an elderly person and what they have to offer as far as knowledge and experience.
Yeah, and I'll be the first one to admit that I was one of those that probably didn't take advantage as much when I was younger. I was, for the most part, raised by my grandparents for the most of the week. My mother was also involved in my upbringing as well, but I had these two old people telling me what to do all the time, and maybe I didn't always listen to them the way when I was a kid growing up, the way I should have. And then my grandfather passed when I was only 14, so I didn't really, once I matured enough, didn't have the opportunity to go back and ask those questions that I wished I would have asked, because he was very knowledgeable. Just like you're saying, this guy could physically do anything when it came to building stuff. He could build a house. He built the barn over here next to your property by himself, which was pretty amazing to think he did put all that up there by himself, really, for the most part, and dug and built a basement, the foundation for the house we put on top of it, or he put on top of it. So, yeah, asking those questions from them about how to do things or how we should be is probably even more so what you're talking about. And so, in some ways, my grandmother was a pretty good Christian lady. She wasn't perfect. She did things that maybe weren't perfect, but her intentions were usually pretty good, pretty biblical. She taught me more than I realized. I know that until I turned 18, 19, then I could start seeing some of those things pop out. But
I had some moments with my grandmother when I was young, when my parents got divorced. I hung out with her at her antique shop, and that was a really interesting experience. I look back on it, and I'm very fond of that time. But then I went through a phase as I got into my later teens, and adults didn't mean so much to me anymore. And then as I got into baseball and dealt with some different coaches and influences, I ran into a lot of the previous generation, the old school baseball guys. And that's when I really started to realize how much of an affinity I had for, the guys that lived in times when there was wars and there was turmoil in the 60s and, so many things that we're so blessed not to have to deal with in our generation and this generation. Yeah.
I mean, there's something to say about that for sure. I mean, we've had a little bit of our wars here lately, and that Memorial Weekend also, to speak of that, is to also celebrate not just all of the people that have passed, but also to give tribute to our veterans, past and future and present, really all combined. And with that, while we were in Oklahoma, I know we mentioned this to you. I've mentioned this to you, and you saw some of what I'm talking about. We went to where Brittany and Jordan do their CrossFit. They're big into CrossFit, these young 25, 26, 7-year-old people. And they're in pretty darn good shape. And what they did this Memorial Day, this past, and I know it's been done for quite a while, is this exercise called the Murph. And it's to celebrate this one particular person, more specifically, his name was Michael Murphy. And he was a young, 26-year-old man in the Army. Maybe he was 29. At the oldest, he was 29, 26 or 29 years old when he was killed, I believe in Afghanistan or in one of those areas. But he used to have a daily routine where he would run a mile, do 100 pull-ups, do 200 push-ups, do 300 squats, and then run another mile. And I don't know if he did it daily or not, but he did it quite often where it became his thing. And so to celebrate him and the other veterans, they do this exercise in their CrossFit
on Memorial Day.
On Memorial Day. And the ones that are really into it try to do it exactly as I listed in as quick a time as possible. And there's people who can do that in 50 minutes.
Wow. And
I don't think I can do a pull-up right now. So how in shape I am at.
Yeah, I'm same. And not only would I not be able to do it, I'd probably hurt myself in the meantime.
I don't know if I can just hang anymore for very long without it hurting. And just pull all those muscles.
Well, I definitely don't move how I used to. We were playing hacky sack. Speaking of the Monday, we had Stephanie's family over on Memorial Day, and after we ate, we all were hanging out, and we played a little guitar and sang a little bit, but then we started playing hacky sack. And back in the day, I was really good at hacky sack, and so you still can see yourself up here.
Oh yeah,
doing it the way you always did it, but then you start moving. You're like, oh man, I better not try that. And I started realizing, I'm on one shot Charlie right now. Just you throw it to me, and I'll hit it right back to you. No, it wasn't that bad. But I was very sore.
No juggling?
No, a little bit. I hit it 3 or 4 or 5 times, and then it becomes laborsome. It's like get rid of the thing. But yeah, I'm sore Tuesday. Oh my! I think I pulled a muscle in my lower lat or rib cage muscle or something.
I never was very good at hacky sack. I didn't spend a whole lot of time trying to do it either. It's just not something I ever got into.
Well, I think it was just fad when I was in high school. I had
Yeah.
a tail too. It just went along those. I was
You
a
had a
little
tail?
hippie, a little hippie maybe.
Oh, you mean your hair?
On my hair,
I thought-
and have like a literal tail.
Yeah.
I identified no, teasing. I just a tail
Rat.
in my hair, and it was,
Yeah.
I don't know, it was a foot long, and
Oh.
played a lot of hacky sack, and probably did a lot of things I shouldn't be doing, but also
Yeah.
fortunately was very involved in baseball and athletics and things like that, and I wanted to make good grades because I had to be eligible for baseball.
Yeah.
So limitation was my motto. Everything in moderation, not limitation. Excuse me.
Yeah, I don't know that well, what we did for fun around here, ran around with the neighbors down the street, and we shot each other with BB guns and things like that, which I know you've had some experience with also. But yeah, we would that and didn't play a whole lot of hacky sack, but we'd throw footballs and baseballs around to have fun and see who could run the quickest, down the road, that kind of thing. But
That was a nice thing about our era is we spent so much
it
time
was outside.
outside. It just I think it's more because our parents wouldn't let us come in. Just go outside and play. Get out from under us.
You're driving us crazy.
That's right. So we would go outside and make things up. It was nice for me having brothers, and they were both older, so I always took the brunt of whatever game we played. But nevertheless, it was a very creative time, and being outside, I think it has its other benefits too. You kind of figure things out on the fly, and you do some things you probably realize I probably won't do again. And,
there were some stupid things I might have duplicated.
Maybe I'll stand back a little further.
Next time I'll try it from here instead. Maybe I'll have a different outcome this time, I'm sure.
But we had so many more freedoms. I remember in high school, we had open lunches, so we would at lunch that we'd go out and eat somewhere and come back, and we had nutrition break in the morning and another break in the afternoon, and I remember having later on in my high school having these teachers aid classes where I had enough credits to graduate, so instead just to fill my day I'd be a teacher's aide for the driver's ed class, or for Stephanie, my wife now, was my girlfriend then. She was in photography as a teacher's aide, and the same time I was in driver's ed as a teacher's aide, and we basically grade a couple papers and go hang out and talk, so it just like there was so many more less strict as far as rules were concerned, and I guess for good reason. I don't know. We got a lot of ornery situations. Didn't get caught a lot, but the freedoms, they allow you to kind of get out there and do some things, which I'm fortunate that our girls didn't get into. At the same time, maybe it would have been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, you wouldn't have enjoyed it as much on the other side.
No, as a parent.
As a parent. Isn't that funny? The things that we did, we don't want, that's normal. I don't want to see you all do this. We did it and it was dumb. We had fun, yes, but you shouldn't do it.
Well, I mean, such things as, I remember, where Benjamin Hills is, the neighborhood. Well, if you go through there's no curbs. It's just all yards and the streets, so you could take your car into anybody's. And I had a couple friends that had this like rat racing path through Benjamin Hills that incorporated a couple of people's yards and things like that. And unfortunately that happened. And there was times where I remember, we get on top of North High School where I went to high school. And one time we all, indulged in some beers and we all, I think it was 10 of us, climbed up on North High School. And there's this tower at North High School, and on the top of it, there's a door on the roof. So, of course, nobody knew that until they got up there. So someone, I'm not going to name any names, kicked the door in for the tower because it's a tradition at North High when you're a senior to go in the tower and to be able to sign your name. But nobody prior to being a senior gets to go in there. It's like the ultimate honor, So anyways, I was not one who ran across the tiles 3 stories up as they broke underneath every footstep and kicked in the door. But nevertheless, I was there when the 2 helicopters and a whole bunch of police cars surrounded the place. And I'm running down the road.
Guilty in association for sure. Now you're trouble.
So 5 of us got away, 5 of us got caught. And nevertheless, we all ended up getting caught. And I think it cost us $200 a piece for the damage to the door and the tiles, and course, we were suspended for a couple of days, but no harm meant.
Right.
But there
Harm
was
done.
The harm done.
Physical
Yeah.
building property, I guess. But
Right.
well, luckily none of you fell off.
Well, one guy did jump off of a higher wall than he wanted to and bumped his butt on the ground. That was the extent of the injuries. He couldn't run anymore.
He was done.
He got nabbed. myself, and one of my good friends, again unnamed,
Yeah.
were hiding under a bush by the river, and here comes the helicopter down the river with a spotlight. So we take off to this bigger bush. Get about halfway there, I decided we're not going to make it before the light, so I ran back to the place we started at, and he went to the other bush. So when the cops came running down the bank of the river, they grabbed me and made me lay on the ground. And as I did, my friend is 20 feet away from me. I'm looking at him eye to eye. He's under the bush. They hadn't found him yet.
And you didn't scream.
No,
well, that's good.
I didn't scream.
Didn't holler.
But there's a lot more to that story. But that's one of my high school escapades.
We don't have to bear all.
No.
That's fine.
Not something I would recommend to today's youth.
No, and I didn't break anything, but I also climbed on not near as high a school.
To be clear, I didn't break anything.
You didn't break
either.
anything.
I was
didn't break into
up
anything.
there.
That's
I never ran across the tiles or went in.
Somebody.
I got down off the roof, and as the police came, I was already on the ground. So I got a little head start on everybody. Unfortunately, I didn't keep running. I stopped and tried to hide under a bush. But the dry ice and water bottles in the River Festival, when you know what those do? Can't say. You just put dry ice in a plastic bottle and put water.
Oh, yeah.
Put the lid
it's
on.
not good.
It'll blow up after a while.
Boom.
Just
Yeah.
a little boom. It's not
harmful. Not harmful. Yeah.
We just throw them in the river, and they float down the river, and then boom, and it was just a fun prank.
Yeah, we didn't do a whole
was
lot
out on
like
the
that.
river watching the floats.
What did we do? We just ran around, like I said, shooting each other with BB guns most of the time. When we got older, we did some stupid stuff in some cars. We'd race each other here and there, time to time, and try to turn corners too fast. I remember I was trying to crank a corner at Tyler and 45th Street, and I was in the lead in my little car, and I go to more or less kind of drift, I thought, into 45th Street from Tyler. And my buddy Kirk comes along with his mom's big old Cougar and hits the rear end of my car, spins me. We do stupid stuff like that.
I got one like that. I was me and the same guy who was underneath the other bush when I was getting arrested. We have this thing every year in Wichita where they have this medallion, and they left clues in the newspaper for you try to go find where the medallion was. I don't remember what the prize was.
I don't either.
So we're going through a park and Riverside Park, Sims actually, and there's these like 3-foot poles that stick up and line the whole path of where you're driving. You know, well, me and Doug were looking at each other, laughing, and next thing I know, I look up and I'm like 2 feet from one of these poles, and I just buried my mom's front end of her station wagon, her Aspen station wagon, into this pole. And it's terrible because, I mean, she was, we were, after my parents got divorced, she that was her driver, she had to get to and from work with that car. So I smashed it in a pole. Of course, I didn't tell her we were screwing around. I said there was a car coming at us the other way, and I either hit the car head on or hit the pole. Mom, what was I supposed to do? I opted for the pole, so it was like I somehow twisted that into me being a hero.
But saved people's lives that day.
Stephanie had a little Fiat, a little red Fiat her dad gave her. We were in high school, and I did the same thing you were talking about. I was in Midtown, and I was on 18th Street in Wellington. Is a dirt road, and I turned on that dirt road and I kicked it a little bit, and it's a stick shift, So, and I slid out and I hit the curb, and I popped. My friend and my brother were behind me in their car doing the same thing, only I hit the curb, and they said they watched me pop up out of the driver's seat and land in the passenger seat.
I don't think I heard that story before.
Yeah, that was on the.
You didn't wear a seatbelt back then.
Well,
no, none of us really did.
I believe I had some cars that didn't even have seatbelts.
I think all this, when I was a kid, they all had lap belts. We just never used them.
I remember. I mean, did your family ever have a station wagon?
No.
We would travel where we lived in Denver area, Denver, Colorado area. We would come here to Wichita because my grandmother lived here, and of course my mom's mom, and we'd get in the station wagon and drive from Colorado. My dad would be in the front seat with the window down, smoking heaters.
Yeah.
And we were all laying in like
Yep.
a big pallet in the back of the car.
Yeah.
And nobody thought much of it. But I do specifically remember one time we came upon a crash in western Kansas, and it was a car flipped upside down. And my dad assisted in pulling all the people out of the car. And as he got the last person out, a diesel came and hit the car, sticking its nose out in the street and spun it around again. And he was holding the baby. I don't remember if anybody died or what have you. I was so young, but I do remember my dad holding the baby, and he said the baby was chewing on something. He reached down and pulled a piece of glass out of the baby's mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty horrific.
That's
but
crazy.
no seatbelts, I'm sure, in that one.
No, most likely what we had was my grandparents, we'd go, their oldest son, so my uncle, their oldest child actually lived in Iowa, Fairfield, Iowa, which is a nice little about 8-hour drive, 7 to 8 hour drive from here. And they had a big 4-door Buick that my brother and I would take turns laying in the back deck,
Above
back
the
window
seat.
above the seats, that little, getting a little bit of sun. And that way somebody could lay across the back seat.
Mm.
And if we didn't lay up there when we got bigger, because we were too tall or whatever to lay back there, we would take turns. One would lay on the seats and the other one had to lay down on the floor
With the hump.
with the transmission hump. So you had to lay on your stomach most of the time or figure something else out to be comfortable. But
They've upgraded those cars nowadays, haven't they? No, you don't see the transition hump or the transmission humps in the back
you don't see them,
floorboard
no.
anymore.
But yeah, so yeah, transmission hump, it's the differential, it's whatever's running up and down through all of that. But it, that's, no, nothing. We just rode back there and it was a good time. This is a lot safer, but
Well,
it was fun.
Safety can be relative to. I understand the seatbelt
Oh,
rule
yeah, 100%.
because if I was an insurance company representing someone who got into a crash, I want to pay a lot less money based on your injuries or what have you.
Yeah.
So the seatbelt will help alleviate that, hopefully.
I wear them. We had a
I do too. I get dong.
ding, you get that. Several years ago when we were driving, the wife and had all 3 kids. Well, then we just had 3 kids. We were on our way to your house and coming up on the 96 highway, coming north on Ridge. We all had our seatbelts on. Brittany, being the youngest, was actually in her booster seat or whatever it was, and had a lady pull out in front of me, and I hit her front driver's tire. When I'm doing like 55, and we had the seatbelts on, the airbags come out, and the airbags hurt when
They
they
slap you a little bit.
oh my gosh, I got the top of my head. Got a burn from either the airbag or the top of the, I don't know what it was, but airbag, smacks out and the kids were safe. But I watched that lady spin in a circle and come back around and hit us on the backside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I hit her, instead of hitting her driver's door, which is what I was lined up for, I turned our car to hit the front of her car instead of the side of her car, and it spun her car around seemed like 3 times. It might have just been a full turn, but it seemed like several, and came back and hit my rear passenger side with her car and then went in the ditch. So I was traveling. She was just stopped and just decided to come across in front of us when I was doing 55 miles an hour and hit the brakes.
Now
it has a stoplight there.
I just had a thought though, because you were talking about the airbag slapping your head.
Yeah.
And I started thinking back, and I'm picturing all these wounds you've had on your head
I've
over the years. From your
Why are you looking at my head
the back of your head, and the countless times I've seen shave wounds.
I haven't had a good razor cut to the back of my head in a while. That's good.
It comes with
I use a razor, a bladed razor, and if I got in a hurry, when you reach back and if you don't take the right angle, you gotta be careful. It's dangerous. Where I've taken slap a skin about the size of a quarter off.
I did I had a speech class in college, and I did it. I was terrified. I didn't want to talk in front of people. I
didn't
still
like
not
it.
a huge fan of talking in front of people. But I had to do this speech, and it had to been like a comparison contrast speech, and so I did it on shaving. And it's funny you said that about cutting your head, because I did it based on the different types of facial features, based on being someone who's overweight, someone who's underweight, very bony jawline, or the giant Adam's apple. And those are danger zones, and how the razor tends to kind of get it, grab the folds if you got those, or acne is obviously a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I recommended the electric razor for those. But nevertheless, it was just kind of ironic what you just said, that because shaving is a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It's why I don't do it.
I do it as little as possible. I do have a couple electric razors, and if I'm not lazy, that's what they're for, is to stay on top of, because I used a blade yesterday and cut everything down. Like I know you all care, but I got all nice and shiny, smooth. So like tonight when I get home, I'll use this little razor that I have. I think it's called a skull. It's like a little skull. I forget, Pitbull. We're not sponsoring anybody here. And I'm obviously not a very good ad guy, because I'm not speaking and I can't even remember the full name of the dang thing. But I use it on my head and shave everything down, and it does pretty darn good. And then I don't have to worry about cutting myself. And then I try to, stay on top of that. But yeah, it's so painful. I got scars back there. I've had a upright, 15-foot tall rack.
Was that this?
Fall. No, it hit me from a full fall, and I had 9 stitches somewhere in here. This was just stupidity, tripping and falling, chasing after a little kid at a softball game, and hit my head, my sunglasses.
Right. I remember that.
And that split this little funky scar across here. Alcohol may or may not.
I was going to say, I was wondering if there was any beers involved with that one.
May or may not have. There wasn't supposed to have been any there, but nonetheless, that's what happened.
Well, Goddard,
Stupid.
you can go to those little league.
Yeah, you can go to Little League.
And
You can't
beer.
go to a high school game and do it.
Oh, is that where you were?
I didn't say I did. I'm just saying there's a cat. You might have you may or may not be able to see the cat. Depending on how well I edit this, you may or may not be able to see the cat.
Well, knowing him, he'll make his presence known here pretty soon.
As long as he doesn't jump on that camera.
Mm-hmm.
There he be.
There he is. This is Coleman. This is one of our rescue kitties who lived in the trees behind our house for a year, all by itself. We didn't feed it, and it survived. And finally, my daughter talked me into.
Are you jumping? What are you doing here, cat? Taking over the podcast?
He's gonna get.
You got anything?
He's up to no good.
You got anything good to say? Anything interesting? You got any shaving techniques? No?
Just
Okay.
Curious. He's just curious, as is the other one. We have another one just like it named Cooper, another black one, and they're both pretty rambunctious.
Thought you were going to jump down. You put your stinking claw right at my thigh.
He'll get bored with us.
Yep. He's
Don't
gone.
Give him any attention.
He's gone. So, yeah. Anyway, that shaving. We were talking about this.
Well, the
Move
only
on.
reason I thought of that, I thought when I was in that speech class, if I was going to be comfortable speaking in front of everyone, that I thought if I could get them laughing, or if I could get laughing, that I would be more comfortable. And it actually went off really well, and I got through it. But I wouldn't like willingly. I don't know that I would choose that option to go and do speaking engagements and things like that. And maybe I would.
As long as you're the biggest key, and as you probably know, and a lot of people, what makes people nervous is when they're maybe it's spontaneous and they're just say, hey, come up, I need you to talk about a subject, or let's talk about something, and you don't know what you're talking about. So then that makes you nervous to be able to come up with some things or what you're supposed to be saying. But if you know what you're talking about, you're passionate about the conversation. In your case, obviously, baseball could be one of them. And if you started talking about pitching and somebody asked you if you could speak, I know you can, you do.
No.
But that doesn't mean that's the thing you want to do, but you
Right.
can do it fairly comfortably.
I think there's a lot of topics that I could wrap my head around and talk about it. But this is different. Doing it in a crowd of people when you walk on stage and you're the feature person that they're there to see. There's a expectation that comes with that, and know that going in, and hence the anxiety, right? So it's not that I didn't do it or couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. I would, but it would come with some facing of my fears for sure. And
well,
not my most comfortable environment.
I did more or less just that as a job for 4 years. I got up and talked for an hour and a half in front of anywhere from here's the thing. I spoke to a crowd of one, if that's such a thing.
Well, okay. It depends on how.
Up to at one particular meeting, this was for work, I had to speak. There was about 500 people there. And it's the same speech, it's the same information. It was about pipeline safety. So I did that for 4 years all across the United States. I'd travel, as you know, and do that. But I knew what I was up there to do. I knew what I was up there to say. I also, if any opportunity to say something funny, if something popped up, I'd say something funny to get everybody involved and interactive, because that was part of it as well. I enjoyed it. I mean, I'd still be doing it if I didn't have to be gone so much to do it, because that was 29 weeks a year, and about being gone, obviously, but that takes a little bit out of you.
Well, I think it's just like anything, it's like being in a crowd or in front of a crowd of people is intimidating until you do it a few times.
Yeah.
And just like anything, you get comfortable with it. I mean, I've pitched in front of a lot of people,
You've
sang in front of a lot of people. And so the speech class, though, preceded all that. When I did the speech class, that was before I had ever spoken in front of someone.
I hated that stuff in school.
I know, they force you to it. They make you uncomfortable. But I guess, you think about the development of a human. It's a good thing to have to learn to do.
And there was so many times I should have probably, to be honest, if the teachers would grade me the way they probably should have, I could have potentially still be in high school trying to pass some of these classes, because I just didn't do it. They're like, I need you to read a book and then stand up in front of people and give me your book report. How about if I just write it and give it to you? No, you got to stand, did you have to do that in school too?
Absolutely, I did.
And I would just say, give me a 0.
And I was in an honors English class, which was, not to pat myself on the back, but it was to say that everyone in that class was an overachiever.
Right.
And I just felt like a fish out of water. I was like, I don't even want to read this book, let alone give a report on it or talk about it. So, I got an opportunity to take some of those advanced classes, and I don't see where it benefited me. I know it benefited my daughters,
right?
But I wasn't scholastically committed. Let's say I wish I would have been. Looking back, I'd have done things a little different, but I had other interests.
Yeah.
And I didn't have parents that really held me accountable in that regard. So we made it a point with our own kids, and my wife was more of an instrument of making sure they get their stuff done. And it become just a natural habit for them, but it never was for me. It was forced. Every school's project I ever did was laborsome.
Yeah. I don't know that I brought any books home in high school.
I didn't either.
I don't think so. I mean, if I couldn't get it done during school, that's what I'm saying. I'm surprised I passed. I did have to go to one summer school for math because I just wouldn't turn stuff in. I didn't get it done. I didn't take it home. So I did one year of summer school.
I never had to go to summer school, but I got to tell you, I did not. I was like you. I didn't take any books home in high schoell.
Yeah.
So I went to school in Montgomery, Alabama, and I, drove my Chevy Love pickup truck from Wichita to Montgomery, and I got a Pell Grant, which I was on a full ride scholarship.
Because your skin is so pale. Is that pale?
A Pell.
A Pell. Oh, pale.
So when I got there, though, I had a full ride, so I had books, tuition, room, board, food, meal ticket. I had to eat in the cafeteria, but I didn't have any money. I didn't have any spending money except for this Pell Grant that I got. And Stephanie tried to get the Pell Grant. She couldn't get it because she was not, I guess, as an independent, she didn't make enough money to file for an independent Pell Grant. So she couldn't claim her mother as a dependent, or her mother couldn't claim her as a dependent because she was too old. So she got
Weird.
the short end of the stick on that one. Anyways, long story short,
Mm-hmm.
I did not do well my first semester of college because I had zero study habits coming out of college. I didn't know how to pick up a book and study or how to organize my thoughts or what have you. I didn't mind doing the work because I knew I had to stay eligible for baseball. But I got a couple of grades that made me go below the requirement that you had to hold. You had to have a 3.0 GPA, I think it was, to be eligible for baseball, or 2.5 maybe. Anyway, so after my first semester, I was below a 2.5, so I lost my Pell Grant and I lost potentially lost my scholarship, and I had to grovel. I mean, it was because if I told I cannot lose the Pell Grant. I cannot lose this scholarship, or you're going to lose a player. I'm going to have to go to the house because I sure can't do this on my own. My parents weren't supporting me, so But those are the stupid little things that you figure out the hard way. And I wish I would have had parents, I guess, smacking me in the knuckles with a ruler when I was. We didn't actually do that to our kids, but we made sure they got their stuff done.
Well, I don't know. We could probably ask them about the abuse you guys threw down on them. I'm sure they had such a hard life.
They did.
Yeah, terrible. No, they're good kids at least, and you didn't have to get on them too hard. I know, especially the younger one.
Mm-mm. She's pretty self-sufficient.
Somebody would rather stay home and clean her room than go.
Amazing. She's just,
that doesn't happen very often.
And then the oldest one, she got married. She flipped a switch, and all of a sudden, she's that person now.
Yeah,
they must have learned it from their mother.
They must be. Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, for sure.
Anyways, we didn't really come today with an idea of specifically targeting one
just
thing.
Want to have
we
conversation.
Wanted to share our world a little bit, and it's been a fun one. I look back and I try to tell stories about some of the things that I've experienced as a kid and an adolescent, and with relationships and hardships, and it's almost unbelievable when you think about that. And it seems like it was not that long ago.
No,
but to pack so much into such a short time, it's amazing.
Yeah, I went by with a blink of an eye.
Yeah,
amazing.
But the memories aren't all bad. There's a lot of really good ones. And
no, and unfortunately, the older I get, the less memories I have. I'm starting to forget things.
Well, bottom line is it's just life. We all live it, and we all have times where we're going to go through things that are hard, and there's going to be times where everything's bliss and it just comes so easy, and you think you got it all figured out, and then you turn the corner and all of a sudden
smack,
you get into a car wreck.
You cut the back of your head with a razor.
Right, or just catch your backpack on the door handle when you're trying to be in a hurry. Or it's amazing how things happen to change your course.
Yeah. And they do that. Just like God just saying, "Hey, wake up! You need to pay a little more attention."
Well, I think that's a really neat topic in itself. As you think about, if you look back on your life, certain things. Like I have to confess, I was thinking about Haley the other day. Weezer.
Yeah.
Haley's ex and the father of her son, who passed away in a car crash, and now Haley is remarried to Derek.
Yep.
They have a kid together.
Yep.
And I started thinking, had Weezer never died in a car crash, Derek would not even be around.
Potentially.
Dawson would probably not be around.
Potentially. None of that would be.
Right. So you just think, I started retracking that whole thing, and then I started thinking about what would have happened if Weezer wouldn't have died in a car crash. How would that have played out? And
good or bad, you never know.
But those are the courses that get abruptly changed.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that can make that happen.
So you should always be thankful about where you're at. It doesn't seem like things are going well. Just, buckle down, hang on. You can get through it. It can get better. I don't know when or if, but it can. Well, but you have to be a participant in that.
Absolutely. And it'll go faster if you act like a buffalo.
Yes, right. Cow. Yeah, head straight on in.
Just deal with it. It's because it's not going away most of the time. Anything you feel heartache or
especially if you avoid it.
Yeah, and it's only going to fester, and then you end up with worse situations, worse issues. So
Absolutely.
And you think about all those things too, and it could be, anything from the standpoint of a death to a failed relationship, or, a lost job, or, I just like lost my job with the Nationals for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And, and now I'm home doing lessons with kids and loving it, having a blast, kind of semi-retired and just doing that to give back and subsidize my income a little bit. And I'm home all the time doing the yard work and groundskeeper stuff.
Your oldest daughter is going to probably be leaning on you and the wife here quite a bit here for too long. And you're going to be very appreciative of this time that you have.
You bet. Hopefully this podcast doesn't come out too soon, because I'm not sure she's formally announced that.
Announced what?
Right.
I didn't say anything.
Oh, you're right. What are we talking about?
I don't know. I just said they're going to be very appreciative of you. And so will you be appreciative of this time that you have available.
You bet.
Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
I guarantee it. So, but anywho, there's a lot of things, just the simple things too. Like, as a kid, you all grow up and you kind of go your own direction. So, your brothers and sisters and people that you were near and dear with growing up, everybody goes their separate ways, and those relationships kind of, they don't go away. They just fade a little bit, and you don't have the same intimacy or conversations or.
No. And I've, going along with that, I've got 3 or 4 guys, and you know most of them, that I go deer hunting with. There's 3 guys that I go deer hunting with every year that I've known since, 2 of them, we more or less went to kindergarten together, first grade, and have known each other, basically for 50 years. But we don't get to see each other that often. I mean, for one, maybe twice a year for a couple of us, and maybe 3 or 4 times a year for the other ones. But man, when we get back together, we're just as dumb as what we were when we were in junior high, if you will. But yeah, it's just not the same. But we've all, they've got kids or they've got grandkids now, and it's busy. It's hard to get together sometimes.
What, so you were just talking about your friends.
Yeah.
Obviously you've known them from the entirety of your life, essentially, right?
Yeah. 50 years.
So I started thinking about I looked through my life and my friendships that I made along the way. And after my parents got divorced, we moved here to Wichita, but I developed some friends in Colorado that I still stay in touch with to this day. And that was, I was 12 years old, and so through Facebook and, social media, that's been an option where it wouldn't have no way been an option otherwise. But then, I look at my high school friends, and just like you were just talking about it, we all kind of, came into, knowing each other around the 12, 13-year-old age. And we've been friends ever since. So, 40 plus years, and we don't get together very often, but when we do, it's the same thing. It's you never ever miss a beat, and you tend to talk about the things that happened when you were in high school. Like what was it about us as high schoolers that made us so cool, or tough, right? Tough guys or whatever. But you start really thinking about, oh, come on, you were 17 years old. How
you're an idiot.
How much of a stud could you have really been?
Yeah, that's what we do. We sit down and play these same stories over and over again every year, deer hunting,
and laugh like
we've never heard it. Sit there and smoke cigars and have a little sip of adult beverage, whatever it may be, but one thing is a huge thing that's different is we're probably going to bed at 10 o'clock.
Right. And that's a strain.
Yeah. And then, we got to get up at 5 if we're going to go deer hunt.
Yeah,
so
go sit in a really cold deer stand.
It hadn't been that cold the last couple of years, but it needs to be cold. It's helpful for the deer, but I don't mind it when it's not cold in the morning.
Enjoy your sit
out there. But
being a part of nature is enjoyable.
Oh yeah. You sit there and I've had the opportunity to shoot deer the last couple of years, but I just didn't want to shoot a doe. I didn't need the meat that bad. You're looking for that big trophy to come out, but just sitting there and listening, which I know you enjoy as well, and bird watching in some cases, but just wildlife watching. Every once in a while, I've had a bobcat when we were sitting in the trees come down. I could heard something, and I looked down at the base of the tree, and this bobcat's walking by. And I'm just going, please don't climb up this.
Oh,
You know,
right.
like, don't climb up my tree. If you're going to come up, don't. I'll probably scream
I
like a girl
definitely
if a sucker comes
don't.
at me. So no,
I definitely don't want to get in a fight with a
I
bobcat
don't
up
want to
in a
get
tree.
up in a tree. I'm coming, and plus I'm hooked in. I can't go anywhere because for safety, I have a safety harness on.
Mhm.
So if I were to get up, I've only got like a 3-foot movement. So I'm just like a cat toy hanging for this dang bobcat to mess with if I wanted to. But you know, we have bobcats and tons of geese and different hawks and birds fly through, and
Well, I like
kind
to
of
I like
fun.
to fish too, and you know,
Yeah,
just the funny
same
stories.
reason.
The funny stories that always happen when you do this. So I was with my brother Brent, and we were fishing one time, and he, he we both were fishing for largemouth bass with a bait caster and a
Yeah.
rubber worm, and we also had a shiner, you know, one of those little live
Uh-huh.
fish on a pole just out floating around with a bobber. And of course, his pole goes down. He got this little bitty pole, and it's just tweaked, and he reels in like a 16-pound catfish.
Nice.
And he gets it in the boat, and he's holding it. It's like a trophy, right? And it goes, bah. You ever heard catfish do that? Bah. And he dropped that thing and started stomping on it and cussing at it in the middle of the boat. Hilarious. So funny. All along, he thought it was a giant bass, and then he got it in, and he dropped it and screamed like a little girl, like he just did.
Why'd that scare him? I'm gonna have to ask him.
I don't think he anticipated it. I mean, obviously bass don't snort at you like that.
No.
And
No,
it just burped and freaked him out. But another time, that was an interesting fish story. I was reeling in a bass, a largemouth bass, and this happened to be in the same farm pond. And this bass, I don't know, 10 feet from the boat, came flying up out of the water. And when he did, something came flying out of its mouth at me and hit me. And it hit me on the shoulder, and I look, and it was just the head of a fish that this other fish
he ate.
evidently he projectile vomited a piece of fish in my general direction.
He's trying to hit you in the eye.
He fished me.
He got fished by the fish.
So you know the things that happen. The last time me and Brent went, and
That's
it
funny.
happens every time we go fishing, something dumb happens. But we were coming out of the water, and we had to go through these tall reeds. And I'll be darned if a darn snake didn't just drop right in the middle of the boat, you know, and I'm in the back of the boat. Brent's trying to pull us out, and there's a snake between me and him. I'm like, hey, man, I don't know what to do. I don't want to get in the water because
He
there's
didn't
probably
scream.
more snakes.
Yeah, it's probably more snakes somewhere else. Oh,
No, I didn't scream, but I was like, get me out of here.
Oh,
guess
my
that's a
gosh.
scream.
That's a scream. It might not have been a girl scream, but it was a scream. It was a scream for help. That's okay.
So the outdoors are great. I walked out my
Enjoy
front
it.
door the other day. I love living out here.
Yeah.
You know, we have some trees and some space, and of course, we get some wild animals as a result. And I walked out my front door the other day, and there's a box turtle by the step and a garter snake right next to the box turtle. So I'm I get a little piece of wildlife every now and then. So
Yeah, he said something about you were scratching the chin of a toad.
a toad.
Wasn't that the same day? That was a different day.
Well, down here, no, it was the exact same day.
Same
I
day?
had a wildlife experience all day long, and I came down to feed the birds, and I got this little can. It's full of black oil sunflower seeds, by the way, for you bird people. They love them.
Yeah.
And it attracts a whole lot of different ones. Anyways, I look over, and on this probably waist high retainer wall, there's a toad sitting on top of the wall. And the other day, he was trying to jump in the garage, and I was stopping him from going in the garage, and he wanted to go in the garage, I guess, because it's cooler in there. Anyway, so this particular day, he's down there on the retainer wall, and I just started tickling him under the chin, and I'll be darned if he didn't just like lift up his chin. He was into it. He was liking it. So then I look, and I get ready to turn around, and I look down, and there's a little bitty tiny toad. So I must have been why he was there. He was a little baby. He must have took the plunge over the top of the retainer wall and couldn't get back up.
Rescue
No,
toad.
he was stuck in the walkout area.
Yeah, wildlife. We had like 10 turkey. This has been several weeks ago. We had like 10 turkey walk down our back fence to the west. Brandy walked outside, and the turkeys, she started hollering. She got a little bit of a video of it, but they're just all walking north right down the fence line. And I can see them through the bedroom window. I happen to be in our bedroom at the time, which also luckily faces that direction. And I'm like, where in the world are they going? They're walking to a residential area. I don't know why they were going that way.
Somebody maybe feeds them down that way.
Maybe, but they kind of finally wandered back off west towards the fields and the trees. But
Well,
I hadn't. That's the closest. I mean, they were literally on the other side of our fence.
Well, we
the
used to get a
backyard.
bunch of turkeys, and as you know,
Yeah.
we used to live here, and turkeys and deer, and there's one time I think we counted 18 or 19 deer frolicking around on the baseball field, like a baseball game was going on. That the deer were playing, but every now and then we'll still see a deer or a fox
Yeah.
or a coyote, or we saw a wild turkey the other day, but it's just one. There's a lot less occurrences.
unfortunately.
Wichita's pushing us this way.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of flipping duplexes being built right now, taking away a lot of the farmland and stuff.
By the flipping, I'm assuming.
I was just trying to back off what I wanted to say, and I did. Full stinking duplexes. I mean, I know they serve a purpose, but I don't know why we're building hundreds and hundreds of them.
No, and the giant apartment complex right down the
There's
street.
several of them. There's one up further west, just a couple miles away from this one too.
It just makes you wonder, like, how come there's so many people in need of a place to live? You know, it's like, I understand there's a homeless issue,
Yeah,
but generally homeless people can't afford to go pay rent at an apartment complex.
no, because those are well over $1,000 apartments,
I would think so.
and the duplexes are probably pushing closer to 1,800.
Or there's got to be 2,000 brand new apartments.
It's
duplexes.
crazy.
Where are the people coming from?
I don't. We'll see when they get done how they fill up, how quickly.
Yeah.
But and then there's still quite a few new homes being built around here too.
Well, with the economy the way it is and inflation the way it is, I would think that would all slow down. But it
doesn't seem
like. I was, where are all these people coming from? Where are they getting their money?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I need to change jobs. I know somebody's making more money than me. Lots of people are, but yeah, I don't know. But that's definitely hurting. I mean, there's a lot of farmland that was here. I mean, I can already hear myself. I feel like those old guys we used to listen to, you're saying you should listen to. But this place sure looks different than what it did when we were in school.
Oh, yes. It's different than just
Oh, wow.
when we moved.
In the last 10 years, 20 years, yeah.
Yeah, so it's amazing the growth that's happening. We live in, Wichita, Kansas, but on the northwest side where there's a Mays suburb, and Mays is a pretty popular.
It's a great
suburb.
school.
It's a good school.
Where I went to
district.
school.
Nice, yeah. My daughters went to school
Your
there.
daughters,
yeah,
mine.
so
And our kids.
with that, there's so much. I don't know, people moving here.
People want to be in the school district. And so they are building homes, they're building duplexes and apartments. And I think maybe some of that is to get different levels of people, whether they are in their financial states, where it's not just the high-end rich people that are, because there's a lot of 500,000 plus home. I mean, I drove through an area east of here, within less than a mile of your property, and there are $900,000 homes down there. Who in the world they building a whole?
I know they dredge out these giant holes in the ground because it's all old river bottoms. So they take all the sand and they use it to make concrete and whatnot, and then they end up with these big pristine sand pits, holes in the ground that are all full of clear water, and then they develop them. And of course, if you're going to put a house on a lake, you want it to be a pretty nice house. And so, there's not a lot of there's some older houses that were here
around
from
the area
way back that are around that are smaller, but you can just tell that there's all this. They're trying to take advantage in the Mays School District with all the open land. I keep hoping somebody's going to come and offer me a mint for my property.
3-4 times what it's really worth.
Right.
That'd be nice.
Where do I go?
Where can you? It's all the land is
going to be just as much for me to go buy something.
It is. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, so the levels are, duplex apartments are going to be cheaper than somebody being able to buy their own home. And then you've got the different ranges of homes around here so that you can get all aspects of, peoples and economic wise in your school. So it makes it more diverse, I guess, is where I'm trying to go. But good gosh, it's got to have an end at some point. But
well, yeah, you don't. I don't want to diversify a place to the point of depleting
Oh.
what the quality of it.
Yes.
Because the one thing about Mays is that it has been a little bit of a rural
Mm-hmm.
area and kind of some
That was its appeal.
country living with some
Yeah.
big plots of property, and that's why we moved here to begin
Mhm.
with. And then of course we wanted to get the girls out of the middle of Wichita, and so we brought them out here, and for the same reason everybody else is now,
Yeah.
probably. And we fortunately happened upon this property that your family used to own,
Yeah.
and so now it's a high in demand for
Wow.
because of the school districts, and but you do every open field is starting to get developed into a housing community or something. So
Yeah, which it's taken away farmland, which will cause an issue eventually if we keep doing this. I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and if you guys aren't listening to Joe Rogan, you should. Maybe some of his podcasts aren't your cup of tea because they don't hold back in a lot of them. But he had this gentleman on named Will Harris, the one I had just finished listening to today, actually. And I'm not going to be able to say exactly what the type of farming is that he does exactly because the terminology has left me. But he is the third generation farmer. He's in Georgia, and he used to be one of those big ag type farmers where he used pesticides, herbicides, and all these things. And 25 years ago, he started moving away from all that and went all natural, the way they used to do it in the 1800s, probably early 1900s, where the livestock took care of the property, and then that way where it wasn't so intrusive into nature. Because from what he's saying, and I've heard it, and other people say this, we're killing all of our topsoil, and eventually we're not going to be able to farm.
You can only farm
properly.
it so many times. They used to alternate their crops too, right?
Mhm.
Where they would grow this
They'd do some
field, and then the
things.
next field they wouldn't do it. Or the next year they wouldn't grow anything in it. And it just helps the soil.
But all this stuff that we've been using, again, the herbicides and pesticides and fertilizers and different things are hurting that topsoil, and it's not really good for it. The way that we're doing it today. So anyway, it's just his regenerative type farming. He says it costs him a whole lot more money to do it, and he probably makes 30% less than in the other way. But anyway, it was just interesting. We're just killing all this farmland. It's going to make it difficult for
there's a
for
lot
us in the future, but we just don't seem to care.
Well, there's a lot of farmland. I know that it takes farmland, but the only option, I guess, would be in terms of population growth would be to go up as opposed to out.
Yeah.
So I mean, we have to have enough housing to support the population, but I just don't see the population growing as fast as the houses are.
Not as fast as they're going up right now. I mean, I didn't know we had that much, but
it could be something to do with the dynamic of the way things are right now in our culture, and it seems maybe people are trying to find a more, I guess, reasonable place to live where it's not so expensive and they have some space, and
yeah.
And that's the nice thing about Kansas is there is space.
Still lots of space.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got tons of space that people don't want to live because there's nothing there. But most of these places there weren't anything there until someone got there. So
true, very true.
Isn't that amazing?
I think
just came out of my head.
The whole face of Kansas, though, is completely different from what it was before.
Oh,
when there was just Indians here, and there wasn't trees; it was just open grasslands. The Flint Hills are incredible. If you've never seen that, go
beautiful
go
when
check
it's green, especially.
Oh, and it just looks like water, kind of. The wind blowing across the top of those tall grass blades, and the way the hills are rolling, and pretty neat. It's got a beauty of its own. So does Kansas, but I've been to a lot of beautiful places, so I know that there's plenty of others out there.
Lots, but Kansas gets a bum rap.
I think so.
I think
Wizard of Oz was good and bad for Kansas.
It was, and people just think of that when they think of Kansas, and maybe tornadoes. That's
big deer,
definitely
big deers.
Well, a lot of people come to Kansas for the whitetail bucks. That's for sure.
Wheat.
Yep.
This Kansas popular crop.
Yeah, we're one of
corn,
those
maybe.
flyover states, as they say.
Yeah.
But come and stay. It's nice. We got things to do here.
And there's something about too that you don't necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily want to live like this all the time, but there is something nice about being in such an open space that you can see the horizon, and that's something that you kind of learn to love. I think
Yeah.
not that you can do that everywhere, but when you get out in the open road in Kansas, you can definitely see the horizon.
You can see I've been in, I was able to travel and the job I was talking about earlier, where I drove a lot of the United States, drove through a lot of states and big cities. And I get in some of those, and I never thought that I was claustrophobic, but in some of those cities where I can't see very far for very long, I almost get claustrophobic because I'm so used to what you're saying, being able to see a mile plus.
Well, two things that helped me identify with that. One was the first time I went to New York City.
Yeah.
As a baseball player, I stepped out of that hotel and I was like, I was going to walk around the city, and I was kind of afraid to go too far for fear that I wouldn't be able to figure out how to get, because you can't see where you're going. You just got to know your streets and what have you. So, but another time was, I grew up in Colorado, but of course I was in Denver. I wasn't in the mountains, but whenever I go to the mountains and get in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, of course you're surrounded in mountains. And after about 3 days, I start feeling that same way, and kind of just a little bit of claustrophobic, and just want to get out in an wide open space.
Yeah, I've felt the same in Colorado too. It is beautiful. I love being there. It's one of the most beautiful states we have, I think.
But, oh, no doubt.
Yeah, in those areas,
than
it's a lot
what we're used to, for sure.
Absolutely.
But Kansas, you got fishing, a lot of like open ponds, and
several lakes.
The Arkansas River, which is
the Arkansas
River.
That's Arkansas.
And we have the Little Arkansas River, which is a tributary that comes off of the Arkansas River.
Yeah.
And they happen to meet at the Indian Center downtown. The fork in the river is where the Wichita Indians used to live. And that's how Wichita, of course, got its name. So a lot of history from the cattle drives through the Chisholm Trail, and one side of downtown was the ruffians and bars, and the other side was the townspeople.
Yeah, one of my great grandfathers used to be one of the ruffians that owned a bar.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Well, we'll have to talk about that later. That's good. So, anyways, it's a lot of Kansas history and things that people don't know about it, but it's also it can be mundane if you're out in the country. There's not a lot to do other than shoot a gun or.
Well, I'm about ready for that though.
Yeah, absolutely.
To be honest. But anyway, I think that was a pretty good conversation about things. Yeah,
everything, anything, and everything. Everything's on the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get more precise and start to kind of hit on some topics that what we really like to is talking about a topic and then how it has applied to us in our lives, and that's just a neat way to go about things, and I'm sure that other people will relate to some of the things that we've experienced and done, and we just want to share.
We just want to share our lives, and again, our podcast is Life and Grace for that reason, just to talk about the things that we find interesting, that you may find interesting, and we never want to forget about the grace that we're given. We had communion today at church. So that was a big part of it. I'm reading a book right now that I don't want to get into talking about it now, because I think we're probably good for today, but maybe in a week or two, we do another podcast or two. Maybe we can talk a little bit about that. I know you've read several books that are pretty interesting, but this particular one is really about that kind of the Easter time. That's where I'm at right now, reading about the first Easter and the significance of it. So, that's where we get our grace from. So that's kind of the only reason I said that. So we'll talk about that maybe sometime. And who knows, we just may talk about what happened, just like we've just did.
Yeah. Well, nevertheless, we'll talk.
We'll talk.
We'll talk a lot. So that's why we're here, just to do this.
We'll ramble on.
Bring our chats to anybody that wants to listen, and hopefully you find them interesting, and hopefully down the road we'll get to a place where maybe we can even take some thoughts or requests about certain topics and things.
Yeah. And we're planning on changing. We did the backyard at my house a couple of weeks ago, and back in here in our studio today, if you will. But we're planning on changing it up again and maybe bringing one or two people in at some point sooner than later.
Well, I think just to
Figure that out.
break the monotony of conversations, the more people you have, the easier they are to have, and we don't want anybody to get bored with me and you, especially if we get to rambling about the same things
over and over again. But yeah, we've got some interesting friends, family that would be good to add in.
You bet.
Here and there as well.
You bet. We got firemen, electricians, and
plumbers.
Yeah, we got women and men, and
more baseball players.
I'm
sure you guys got tons of. One particular guy, and we won't say who he is at this point until he agrees maybe to come on here. That was actually that you got to coach. So I know there's some good stories that some of these people on here that listen to us may even want to hear. So at that time, we'll see.
Okay,
I think we're done.
All right, Troy.
You done?
Good talking with you as usual.
You too, Brad. Thank you all. Talk to you later.
Bye bye.